Okay, hi everyone. Welcome Hannah, welcome Becca. Tonight we're discussing Tall Bones by Anna Bailey. So, spoiler free, what did you guys think?
I liked it. Becca doesn't look convinced.
I gave it 3 stars. It would have been 2 stars if the ending wasn't good. It's just like, I don't read a lot of thrillers, so I'm not very good at saying why exactly. But it's just like, when I read a thriller, I like it to be really fast paced and always like making me read more. But this was really slow and atmospheric. And I appreciate the writing style, and I thought that it fit the setting. But I don't read a lot of thrillers, and when I do, I like them to be fast paced. So, personal preference thing, I think. I don't think it's bad. I just don't love it.
No. I think that, yeah, by the sounds of things, the things that you like in a thriller are things that make them a thriller as opposed to like traditional Gothic. Whereas I'm the complete opposite. I do like a fast-paced thriller, but I like either listening to an audiobook of a thriller or watching something that's a thriller, because then I feel like I'm more engaged with it. Whereas if I'm reading something where it's really fast-paced, that I don't have the emotional capacity to attach myself to something then, because it's all happening too quick. Whereas with Gothic, it moves so much slower that I do feel like I just get kind of like lulled into this thing, which is why I did like this one, because it's a lot slower than like other thrillers we've read. So I think it's going to be really interesting, because I think the things we're going to like and dislike are going to be polar opposites, which is fine. I like that.
It's interesting though, because in terms of other types of literature, like I only like Gothic classics, but like Gothic thriller, wasn't sold.
That's fair.
I mean, I've completely fallen out with thrillers. Like, every thriller that I've read for the last year, I've hated. But then I really enjoyed this one. And I think it was also because of, like, the lack of traditional thriller elements. And I got really into the, like, spooky atmosphere and just I think the creepy small town vibe was everything that I like in a mystery, without all of the things that I normally don't like in thrillers.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think the only thing I would say about that is I just wish they'd done it more. Like, I wish they'd really lent into the creepy church and the creepy woods. And like, I've read some recently where they're really good at balancing whether it's supernatural or not. And I really like a thriller where the main character, and I think the problem is like there's lots of like perspectives, so it's really hard to do that consistently. But I love one when I'm like, I don't know if you're imagining this or if this is really happening. I love when that's the question that like you're forced to ask as an audience. And with this one, there was no point where I was like, oh, they've imagined that, or that's like just part of this like spooky vibe or whatever. I wish they'd pushed it a little bit more, which is why it was like a 4, not a 5. And I do have like certain things where I'm like, why didn't you push this? This would have been so much creepier if you'd done more with this. But that's just the nerd in me. So yeah.
That's fair. Anything else you guys want to say on the non-spoiler front? Because I always just like rush through this part.
In terms of the vibes that Hannah was talking about, and Kelly, how you said that it was everything that you liked in a small town creepy thriller vibe kind of thing. One thing that I didn't like, which is just a personal preference, is all of the religion stuff, but then it's like, it's not supposed to be a good story, you know what I mean? But like that stuff just generally makes me really, really angry. So like it served its purpose within the book, but it still annoyed me because I really don't like it.
Yeah. I thought going into this that I knew it was going to be central, like around a church, but from the description and from like the reviews that I'd seen, I went into this thinking it was going to be like one of those like culty ones where it's more not necessarily that they're following God and Christ and like using the Bible as an excuse, but leaning into how creepy the vicar, like the priest is, and the idea that he center himself in it. Because I'm saying, Becca, like I don't think I'd have chosen this if I thought it was going to be heavily religious. And I think the problem is some of those things are really tropey now, especially in books, and they just don't need to be done. We know there's like horrible shit like that in real life. So like I think you have to go above, and this is what I mean like earlier when I was saying like push it more. I really didn't get what the point of having the church was, other than to vindicate awful behavior. And I feel like if the vicar had actually, if he had been the center of it, if it was a case of all the families were focused on him rather than the church as a whole, there would have been a lot more like intrigue there, like if he was more manipulative. But I think he was just like a smarmy like salesman type vicar, and I think that made it really hard. Like I agree, like one of the things that I felt let it down massively, I thought it was going to be a creepy culty thing, and then it wasn't. It was just, oh, it's a Southern church. Like that was disappointing. And I think that like the homophobia and stuff like that, like why I don't need that in a book anymore. I don't need that because that's gross. Like I just think things like that, if you're not going to do it with, I mean, like I get that the characters don't change, which was, I guess, a nice way of looking at it, in the fact that like they come out on top, but they shouldn't have to go through all that shit to still be treated like human beings at the end. That bothered me. And I just think with
we'll talk about it probably in the spoilers, but one character in particular, what happened to them when they weren't actually relevant to the main plot was not great.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, at least I agree. I think I agree. I think I know which bit you're talking about. Nice and obvious which bit that is, but yeah.
And I feel like a lot of that stuff was very much glossed over. Like it just happened and then things just moved on. And again, like I get that was because it was just trying to be like, oh, this is just like a part of how they live, and this is just normal. But yeah, it felt icky and unnecessary.
Yeah, massively. What I think is really interesting is that the writer is British, writing a Southern American Gothic. And what I was saying to Kelly before we started is she did the same masters that I did. She did it at the same university that I did. And I didn't realize that until like I got to the end and like read like the bit about the author. And although she spent time abroad, she's done it like based off of that masters. And I was like, is there anything in this that I have learned on the same degree? Like, is there something that like, I'm like, oh, I can see why she's done that. And I think the way she like draws attention to certain things, I think is very much what we were taught to do in like bedding in themes in like a specific item or motif is a classic writery thing to do. But I think what makes it a good Gothic is that it has that feel. It's not a traditional Southern Gothic just because it's in Southern America. But having said that, I do feel like it therefore didn't really need to be set in America. It just needed to be set somewhere creepy and rural and to just have all those things. Like it could have been absolutely anywhere. And the fact they constantly make these references to American geographic points just felt a bit like, oh, okay, cool. So it's set in this place, but it didn't feel like it was really like at home there. And I always think that's quite interesting because like I'm assuming both of you have read other books written by Brits or Americans set in the other place. And I think sometimes there's just something inauthentic about it. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it works really well. And other times I'm just like, I feel like you haven't really understood that it's not just a geography thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I don't feel like it needed to be set in America. And like if it was an American author, then I'd be like, well, fair enough, you're in America, makes sense you would set it there. And say you lived in New York but you wanted to create the vibe, then I feel like the natural conclusion would be to set it in the South. But when you're British, why would you then take it to America? Like I don't feel like there was anything that the story gained from being in the US. I mean, it would have had a different tone. I don't think it would have been as heavy on the religion here and things like that. But then, like we said, well, they added to the story in terms of creating atmosphere. They weren't actually necessary. Like it could have been like there's so many things you could have changed about this story and it would have still essentially been the same.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Kelly? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the right person to ask because I personally write nothing set in South Africa just because I don't want to. So like I guess I can see how, you know, someone from anywhere else in the world wouldn't want to write about the place that they live.
No, but like I get that, and I think if anything, you're probably the best person to ask because like the book that I queried first, is a werewolf book set in Arkansas. Have I ever been to Arkansas? No. But what I wanted was like thousands of miles of farmland and woodland that are completely untouched because it's such a rural place. And Arkansas is 80% farm. But it's because it's such a central state, it has places that you can like escape to, and that's the feel that I wanted. I couldn't set a story like that in the UK because I've watched Hunted too many times. I know it's so easy to find people.
The Yorkshire Moors, there's some land there.
Yeah, there is some land there. I love that. Maybe I should. I'll relocate it to somewhere a bit more like that. Snowdon. We'll set it in Snowdon.
I hope they're supposed to be sexy werewolves because I couldn't handle sexy werewolves with a Yorkshire accent.
No. No, absolutely. Well, maybe. No, you've said it. A friend of mine said to me earlier, you can make anything sexy if you try hard enough. And now I feel like that's a challenge I need to accept.
There you go. Yorkshire werewolves.
I'm going to make it a note. I'm going to add that.
I think that's a story we all need. The other thing this is just a nitpicky thing, but since we're talking about location, they kept referencing other places that felt completely unnecessary. So every time they spoke about Denver or Boulder, it felt like it was just to reinforce the fact that this is set in this really sad little small rural town.
I just had a brainwave. Oh my god. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, that was basically the thought. Just like it felt super unnecessary to keep on talking about these places that I never felt like they had any bearing. It was just it just felt like it was for the sake of mentioning.
It's a touchstone.
Like
it's just so you can go, it's just so you can go, oh, it's still America, cool.
Yeah. It's still a sad small town that everyone wants to escape from. Like I didn't get that from the fact that this is very clearly a sad small town.
It's like 80% either wood mill or caravan site. Like that's all it's got, and a little shop. That's it.
My brainwave wasn't, well, it was kind of related to the book. I've been watching The Office and Michael Scott moves to Boulder, and like we watched this after I'd finished the book, and I was like, why does that sound so familiar to me right now? That would be why.
That's why.
There we go.
I love that. I love the idea of naming somewhere after a big rock. Like, I can't hear Boulder and not take it to Donkey and Shrek, which just shows what my emotional capacity is. It's just, I like that Boulder. That's a nice Boulder. That's all I heard. Anytime it was mentioned, I was like, all right. I'm a child. I'm sorry.
I mean, I, to this day, try to relate as much in my life as possible back to Shrek.
Yeah, why not?
It's a classic.
Yeah, it's weird how Shrek has become such a big cultural reference these days. Like when it was happening, if only we'd known.
I know. It's the fact that it had an upswing, like a renaissance, and I just don't. And it was like whilst I was at uni, so I kind of like came back to it. So like as I started teaching, it was having like an upswing, and I was like, "What is going on?" Crazy.
I still think. I mean, now we're getting off topic, but like I think I watched the third and fourth movies in theaters. Like I was into it.
Wow. It's new levels. When they come on TV at Christmas, I'm not that big a fan. So.
I liked the first one. I think I liked the first one because I like anything that takes something I love and then takes the piss out of it. Like I love anything like that. It's why I like Scream and like films like that where they take a horror movie trope that is just excellent and then go, we are going to take the piss out of it though, and you will feel silly for enjoying this, but it's still so good. So I love that.
Okay. I am low-key ready to move on to spoilers, if you guys are. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I've been on many rants about thrillers recently.
Oh, have you? I haven't noticed.
Hannah's been on the receiving end of most of them. And
TikTok mainly.
I think the thing that's been annoying me about most of them is it frustrates me when they try to make me believe that everyone is a terrible person. and then they explain everything away except for the one person that was actually the murderer. But I think that was the thing that made me really like this, because from the get-go, every time it was trying to make me believe that someone had done it, I was like, okay, I know that not all of these people were the murderer, but like I 100% believe that all of these people are going to have something really shady come out about them. But then also the revelations of a couple of them, I was kind of disappointed. Like the sheriff. The sheriff, I felt like they were really building up to something, and then it never really, like, he never really became anything.
No.
And his dad as well.
Yes. So okay, he likes teenage girls, but like could have done so much more.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't really sure where that sentence was going there, Kelly. Like, oh, so he likes teenage girls. Like, what's wrong with that? No, I think you're right. Like, there's a couple of them that did fall a bit flat, and I think it's almost it would have been a pacing issue to try and like squeeze everyone to have like a big revelation, and you do need to leave a couple of people so that you still have suspects other than who it actually turns out to be. So I can appreciate that from like a writing perspective. From a reading perspective, I did like constantly changing who I thought it was going to be, and as someone who watches a lot of murder mysteries and reads a lot of that's my Chinese that's arriving, by the way. Super loud. As someone who like reads a lot of murder mysteries, I liked that because I don't want to feel drawn to one character and immediately seeing red herrings for what they are. So what I liked is the fact that all of the characters are awful and they are all super shady. So when their revelation comes out, it's not a misunderstanding or like it was just, oh, someone caught like the wrong end of the stick or whatever. They are awful, and like actually they would be a viable suspect because even though they've explained this away, they're still a viable suspect and it's still really shady. I did like that. But I felt like some of them, they were trying way too hard. Like the brother from the start having his issue with the sister and not explaining what that issue was until 2/3 of the way made it really kind of like, oh, it has to be him. We have to think that it's him until this point, which meant I didn't. And I was like, it will be something that's completely like, there has to be at least one character that didn't want her dead. And if it's the two brothers, that makes the most sense to me. So I don't know. Yeah, I feel with you with that in that there was a lot more they could have done. And as a reader, I was kind of like, just wanted a bit more, really. That's going to be a running theme with everything I say today. Is like, that would have been great if they'd just done it a bit more.
I did also enjoy like the fact that you weren't really sure who it was, and the author kept leading you to believe that it could be any of them. That being said, I was disappointed. I was disappointed that the one who did it was the obvious choice, like the most violent of all of them. But at the same time, I'm going to put the caveat down that I am disappointed by every thriller I read, because no matter how good the plot twist is, I'm always disappointed that it's not better. And that is just like an unrealistic expectation kind of thing. So like the only thrillers that I've rated 5 stars, there's only one actually, and it's You by Caroline Kepnes, which isn't a traditional kind of thriller. So I've never given a thriller 5 stars because I am always disappointed, but I was disappointed. So take what you want from that.
Who did you want it to be? Because like I can tell you who I thought. I was like, it would be so cool if it was this character, and then it wasn't.
I was having mixed feelings about the was he called Hunter Maddox? I was having mixed feelings about him because he was definitely being shady, and he seemed so genuine in being like a nice guy, and like people were saying that he was a nice guy, but then he always seemed to be extra shady, and I guess he was because he knew who did it. But I was leaning towards him for quite some time, and also her oldest brother, although out of all of them I think the character I ended up liking the most was her oldest brother, or older brother, because the other one's younger.
Yeah, that's fair. What about you, Kelly?
I think every time I thought it could be someone, I felt disappointed by the possibility that it could be them, because everyone I thought it could be, I felt like it was too obvious. Like, it would have been obvious, it would have been obvious if it was her dad. It would have been obvious if it was Hunter's dad. I think for like a hot minute, I thought maybe they're going to really pull a switcheroo and like it'll be her mom and it'll be like some weird thing because like she had like the dad had as we saw, a really an unhealthy relationship with her. And like the mom got jealous and killed her or something. But yeah, I think every time I thought it was someone, I was like, but this just seems too obvious. But then because of the way the story went, like I was okay with who it ended up being. But I think anyone that had done it, I would have felt some measure of disappointment.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I really wanted it to be the best friend. I wanted it to be that in like some drunken stupor that she barely remembered, and that's what she was trying to find, was like this missing piece. That would have been really interesting to me because she was the one person that was adamant that she could find out the truth. And I was like, what a cruel twist of fate it would be that actually the truth is that she did it. I thought that would be like a really interesting thing. And I think it would also be a play on the trope where the murderers always like situate themselves within the investigation, usually intentionally, so they can keep like an eye on it. I thought it'd be really interesting to see it from the perspective of she really wanted to know what happened, and then what she found out happened was that she did it. Because I think it would make it more interesting that Hunter was protecting her rather than some old drunk who sexually assaults people. Like, I think that would have made more sense to me. And I think I'd have not forgiven him, but like I'd have had more of like an empathetic connection to his character. As it was, I just felt like everything that he had that he was struggling with was such a white boy problem. Oh, my parents have high expectations of me and they've put loads of money behind me and I'm like really good at sports and I'm also like really good at other stuff. But to escape, I sell drugs, and it's just like, cool. Like, I was just like, I just don't care about you. Like, it was just one of those things. And I think with other people having more authentic struggles and struggles that I'm like, yeah, I would absolutely punch someone in the face for you, for sure. Like that, it just felt a bit flat. So it's really interesting because like I gave this a 4 because at the end I was just like, I really enjoyed that. And the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, maybe it was a 3.5. Like maybe it's like working its way down. Because I do have issues with stuff like that. And I think it's really frustrating to me that, yes, the violent character, who was violent the whole way through, then had a plot twist of more violence for something that wasn't even true. And like, I've mentioned CinemaSins to Kelly before, but Becca, do you watch CinemaSins, the YouTube?
No.
Okay, so basically it's this guy who reviews, he does it like good things as well, but basically he'll go through a film and like point out stupid things that films have done that just kind of like take you out or whatever. And one of the things he says is that all bad guys are rapists. The idea that just because you're evil in some capacity, you also have the capacity for rape, which just isn't the case, and it can become quite tropey. And for me, that was a real issue in this book. Like the fact that he like the only person in his family he didn't treat like shit was because he actually wanted to possess her in a different way. And then when he has she's not my daughter, go ahead, from a son that he has treated like shit, like I thought was absolutely disgusting. And I just thought at that point, that's when I knew it wasn't going to be a 5 stars for me, because I was like, you've already had all this other stuff that is incredibly problematic, which fair enough in a thriller, they're not going to be nice people. They're not going to deal with nice stuff. But you've made him a rapist now for what? Like, what to make him feel justified in that she then dies? Like, I don't understand. Like, what was the point of that?
I think it's interesting that you brought up the point that all bad guys are rapists in things, because up until I can't remember how far in I was. I think I was only about 150 pages into the book when I updated my vlog. And while I was there, I gave all of the trigger warnings and stuff. And I said, I also feel like there's going to be sexual assault. And I feel like it hinted at that through all of the different characters in this. That when that came to be actually part of the plot, it wasn't a surprise. But then at the same time, I don't think it didn't need to be part of the plot.
No.
But I suppose that's also a point for just like, do you know how you have like sexy villains? The sexy villains are the ones that treat women well. And then the ones that are actually villains, I feel like rape is where everybody kind of just like draws the line. It's like, no, you are literally a horrible person.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a point for just like, do you know how you have like sexy villains? The sexy villains are the ones that treat women well. And then the ones that are actually villains, I feel like rape is where everybody kind of just like draws the line. It's like, no, you are literally a horrible person. Like,
I think
murder
that's-
everyone, absolutely fine. Rape, no.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've got a line, and my hard line is anything beyond that. Like murder, fine. Look, we all lose our rag. Sometimes we do it tactically. I'm all for that. That's fine. Like the first book I read this year, the first chapter has a murder in it, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a 5 stars. I love this. I'm all here for a murder, but rape is unacceptable, and it's one of those things where like I don't get triggered by many things, but I do have to know if there's going to be some kind of sexual assault in a book going ahead, because it's not necessarily that it triggers me in a I get anxious about it or anything. I just get so fucking angry that like I can't sit still. And the first instance I ever had of that was when I did my master's. We were doing love story, and the whole point of love story is that it's not romance, it's that there are lots of different types of love, and there are some toxic versions of love. And we read the book Lolita. Now, I'd never read Lolita, but I knew the premise of it was that this horrible man would sleep with this young girl and then kill her at the end. Like, I knew that that was like the thing. But there's so much in it which, as a teacher, you're taught as like a safeguarding thing to look out for, all these like behaviors and like this really insidious shit that just I couldn't read it. I had to listen to it as an audiobook so that I could like have something to say about it. But I was like pacing around my kitchen, like I was scrubbing everything. Like it really like to this day, like I can feel myself shaking just thinking about it. And I emailed my lecturer and was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to say anything on this, because the moment I start, I'm just gonna like, I'm either gonna cry or I'm gonna scream. Like there's not gonna be like a middle ground there. And I sat really quiet for like most of the lecture, but I could feel myself getting more and more anxious. And then like there was 12 of us in this class. There was one guy and he turned around and went, I really liked it. I thought it was really beautifully written. And I tell you what, that bit where like the cork comes out of the champagne and I just went, what? Like just all this emotion just came like pouring out. And now like when it's things like this, I think you can do it really well. If he hadn't sexually assaulted her and it had just been that insidious level of there's the threat there the whole way through, that would have been really good writing. But to have it at the end and for it to be in the situation that it was with the characters that it was just felt really cheap. And therefore it was just like, I'm triggered by this because it's just making me angry to this capacity of like, yeah. So I have lots of feelings.
I just felt like that whole plot point. One, okay, so you've just found out she's not your daughter. Great. Like, she's still 17? 16, 17? Mm-hmm. Like, she's still a child.
Yeah.
And you were like, and then there's the line where he says something like, I'm going to bring you into the family. And, like, my whole body just went cold. Like,
I audibly went, huh? Like, I was like, that is unacceptable. Like, and I think that's the thing, is like, the idea that he has to have that much control over her is just so fucking weird, because she was the one, like, if it was the son, if it turns out that it was the son that wasn't really his son and it was just like, well, I've tried to beat you into this family, the way he's treated the son the whole way through, I feel like it would just be an escalation of behavior. But the fact that it's on a character, that he's targeting a character that he has treated really well, that he has taught to shoot, that he has taken into the woods and hiked with and taught to swim, and like had all these moments that he has not had with his other children. One, because he physically crippled him whilst throwing a tantrum, and one, because he has been systematically destroying him as he grows up. That it just felt, it wasn't jarring. I mean, it's supposed to be jarring. It's a thriller. Like, it's not meant to be like, oh, well, you know, psychologically he should have gone this way. But I found that hard to swallow, I think, because it was the character that it was.
Yeah, and he just went from 0 to 100. There wasn't like a second where he doubted it. Like, he believed his son. And why would he believe his son? He doesn't even like him.
Yeah.
So, like, why would you take his word and like assault the only child that you like?
Yeah. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
And I feel like you could take the assault out and have him try to kill her, and it would still have been equally as effective. Like, he went, oh, my only child that I like isn't actually my child, and just flew into a rage and tried to kill her. That, I feel like, would have been completely believable.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been more interesting if he had confronted her about all that stuff as she was planning to leave, because she was planning to leave, and I appreciate she was planning to leave because this thing happened to her, but she also had plans to like go to college and stuff before that, and it just kind of like sped up her plan. It would have been more interesting
reasons why she could have wanted to leave.
Yeah,
you didn't horrible to be.
Yeah, grim. So yeah, but yeah. Let's talk about another character now, because I'm gonna go in an angry spiral. And I don't know if you saw the last one, Becca, but I had so many thoughts about Girl in the Walls that I just ranted for like 20 minutes straight. Kelly did not get a word in edgeways, so I'm like, let's talk about something else.
It was amazing. I loved it.
I'm glad, because I can't stop. I would try, bless me, but no.
The character that I said awful things happened to, and I wasn't a fan of it, was Rat. Because he was like the obvious. It's weird because like I don't think he was ever a suspect. Like I never suspected him of doing it, but he was just the scapegoat that everybody else wanted to blame, and it makes sense based on the setting and the tone of the book. But in terms of like what happened to him when he wasn't even connected, and as a reader, like you knew he wasn't connected. I mean, even because it was written in published in 2021, you knew it wasn't going to be him. Because like that would have been like the typical thing that was done in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s kind of thing. So yeah, for such terrible things to happen to him for absolutely no reason, all it really did was reinforce that the people are terrible, but then we already knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't a surprise to anybody, really. Oh, you get a whole bunch of people together, they're going to be awful. A whole bunch of churchy people together, that's not going well.
Yeah.
No, I can be.
The fact that they were just like, again, 0 to 100, like, let's just go and burn this guy's caravan down with him in it, and then be shocked when he almost dies.
Yeah, confronted with your own actions, but like a bit too late. That was one of those things where like it would have made more sense to me if it was culty and around the priest, because the priest is the one that incites violence, right? But as far as we're aware, we've not seen the priest incite anything else. Like he's not incited like that. No one's been isolated from anyone. Like he's not kind of like cut anyone out. All we've seen is him be like a really shitty moral compass of just like, oh, your dad hit you, I guess you have a lesson to learn. Like, I'm sorry, what? Like, if we'd seen like an escalation in his behavior, that would have made more sense. But we don't. It just, again, like you said, it goes from 0 to 100, where he's just inciting, oh yeah, let's just burn him. Let's burn. Like, it would have made more sense if they were like, we know he's not there, or someone's just seen him at like so-and-so's place, so let's make sure he knows that he's not welcome back, kind of thing. But there was just, yeah, he went through so much shit, but it didn't change anything about his arc. Like, what did he learn from any of the stuff that happened to him? Because he had no control over it. He learned the moment they suspect him of something that he didn't do, that he will always have to fight for himself because no one's going to fight for him. And sometimes he thinks he can get out of a situation he can't actually get out of. But like, he knew all those things at the start of the book. As a character, he just has things happen to him. He doesn't change, he doesn't develop, because he doesn't need to. He's the only person that is actually like a decent character. There are characters around him. Like, it would have been more interesting to me to have more of a focus on characters, like as an outsider, appreciating that their character needs to change around him in the same way that the brothers does. Like, the brother appreciates that actually he is the one putting Rat in this dangerous situation, and he's been afraid because he's worried what's going to happen to him from home, whilst not appreciating what's going to happen to Rat from the public, you know? And like the jocks that like come into the cafe and treat everyone like shit, it would have been lovely to see them get some kind of comeuppance, because I think characters like that are a dime a dozen in thrillers. And it's like, let's see something a little bit different for their outcome. And I think that's, yeah, he's the character that I would absolutely set someone else on fire for him, for sure. Let's get murdery.
So I think it would have been interesting as well if the plot line had have happened, but with a character that we actually thought might have done it, only to find out that they didn't do it and it was somebody else completely different. But like, yeah, all it did was really just, because this is one big like Southern American stereotype, essentially, and all it did was reinforce that. but it's a stereotype that we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
Like as soon as the church was introduced and it was like super religious, I was like, Southern American town, bet they're racist and homophobic. And then, because I wasn't,
what a surprise.
I didn't expect any or know if there was going to be any like representation, like queer rep or anything in here. But as soon as that religious theme hit, I was like, we have gay characters here. I know it. I just don't know who they are right now.
Yeah.
Which again is a choice for a British author.
Yeah.
Just reinforcing a Southern American stereotype.
Yeah. Yeah, from the comfort of your Bristolian home. That's interesting.
I mean, she does, in her acknowledgements, make a point of thanking all of the people of, I want to say Texas and somewhere. Probably Texas. And...
That's really funny if she wrote about Colorado, but she was living in Texas.
Texas and Colorado, who shared their stories with her.
She did spend some time there then. Good. Oh, she became a Starbucks barista in Colorado. That makes sense. If you're surrounded by awful people all day because you're working at Starbucks, I can understand you writing a murder mystery at the end.
Yeah, but I don't feel like she's going to be Starbucks barista in a backwater town, because I feel like that's the kind of town where they're like, we don't want no Starbucks around here. Like, none of that shit. Not quite with that accent.
That was the Yorkshire werewolves coming out there.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, no, I think that's... Sorry, Kelly, what did you say?
Oh, I was going to make a jab about Starbucks. It's fine.
No, go.
I feel like the moment's gone.
Oh, sorry. That's my fault.
But what were you going to say?
I can't remember. I was just interrupting you, so I can only apologise. It was definitely related to whatever it was we'd said before, but I don't remember.
What you said about Noah being probably the only character that you liked. So I did, like, loved him the whole way through, but something that I found interesting, and I found it with him as well, was that every character, well, maybe not every character, mostly him and his mum, I felt like there were many moments where they were kind of trying to make you feel sympathy for the person, but then in the same moment, they did something terrible or like thought something terrible, which I couldn't decide if I liked or not. Like, on the one hand, it was nice to have the everyone is terrible thing reinforced, but then also it kind of wasn't. Like, after a while, I was like, I just want one person to be nice.
One person was nice, and that was Rat. What was the name of the youngest brother? The little one. He was cute.
Jude, did either of you get so confused between the two brothers throughout the beginning of this book?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was so confused because I thought that the problem that Noah had with Abigail was that whatever she did to his leg being broken, but it wasn't his leg that was broken, it was his other brother's. Like, the other brother had the broken leg. And then it said that he was walking with a cane, and I was like, but he's just been swimming with his sister. Like, I'm so confused, but they're two different brothers. I think it's because they both have like 4-letter names as well.
Yeah. So I was confused because he had like a sports scholarship that he was going to do. So like you said about the broken leg, I thought it was his leg that was broken. And whilst I could understand him, probably swimming would be one of the few things he could do with a broken leg sports-wise. I still did. Then it was like, oh wait, why has Jude got the cane? Because like it's the idea of like Jude creeping in, but you can hear Jude coming because he's got his walking stick kind of thing. That was really tough because like it is one of those things where I think it's overdone, where writers give you a really young character's perspective just to explain stuff to you, or just for them to go like, I noticed this thing. This is probably something important, but I don't understand what this thing means, so we'll just leave it there. Like, there's a couple of times when, like, he has a conversation with either his sister or Noah, and it just ends really abruptly. And he's like, I don't understand why they're angry. And it's like, well, as an adult, I know why they're angry. Like, it's really obvious. I can put 2 and 2 together. But he was cute, though. Bless him.
I think
I found him quite annoying.
You found him. Oh my god. I liked him. I liked him. Both of the brothers were okay, actually, especially living in that household.
Yeah.
I think his age was a little lost on me because I kept forgetting that he was like, I think he's 13.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have a distinctive voice or anything. There was nothing about him that signaled that he was 13, aside from the reminder occasions that he was young.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a little bit lost. And actually, Dolly, the mum, I had no sympathy for her whatsoever, and I didn't like that she started to come through at the end of the book, and I started liking her for doing that because she's one of my least favorite characters throughout the beginning because of how she never stood up for her children in any way. Like, I understand being intimidated by a husband who's incredibly violent, but at the same time, I kind of would expect a mother to protect their children, even at their own peril. But not standing up for them in any other aspect was like, why?
Yeah. I wanted more consistency there because I think, like you said, she comes through at the end, and there were like moments where, like you said, Kelly, she has these moments where she's thinking a thing and then she says the complete opposite. And I just found that really jarring because I'm like, as a writer, you need to decide at what point is she drawing the line. Is it a case of, okay, you can physically cripple my youngest child, you can spend a whole day beating my eldest son with a belt just because he doesn't do what you want him to do, but raping my child, that's too far. Like, that you get shot in the face for. It was really inconsistent. There was a scene where she comes back after like spending less than a day away. Like, she runs away but then immediately comes back, and she comes back because of Noah. Like, she thinks of Noah and she finds Noah locked in a cabinet, but she's not sympathetic towards him at all, and she doesn't do anything comforting. The one thing he needs from her in that instance is some kind of comfort, and she makes it his fault again that he needs changing and cleaning and stuff like that. So for them to then have their moments later on where she's trying, I was just like, too little too late. Like, you had these moments and you watched them go by because you were so self-centered, and I kind of wanted to see that seen through to the end. I just wanted some consistency. Either she was going to be awful at the beginning and still awful at the end and not learn anything, have those opportunities and continue to miss them, or we should have seen them earlier on. We should have seen her give her children some kind of comfort when the husband wasn't around, you know, providing little things for them, even if just in her subtle way. And even if it's a case of the children don't acknowledge them, as a reader, you should be able to see that, oh, okay, well, she knows she's not allowed to help Noah get back up, but what she can do is leave like a clean shirt on his bed, or she can like prepare his favorite meal the next day or whatever. Like those classic guilt behaviors. But we didn't see any of that. We just see her being like, oh, I'm so hard done by because my parents told me not to rush off and get married, and then I got rushed and married, and guess what? It didn't pan out. So I'm just going to take it out on everybody. And her friendship with Emma's mum was really weird to me because I was like, they're not outsiders. They're not like a mutual friendship here. You've literally been horrible to each other for years, or at least Abigail's mom's, like, Dolly's been horrible to Emma's mum the whole time, of just like, I don't want anything to do with you because you're like, you think you're better than me or whatever. And it's like, where's this friendship come from? Like, I just, yeah, that didn't believe that.
I have so many thoughts on Dolly. I think that, yeah, one of the things that got to me about the end is like, it's fine. Like, I didn't mind that she, you know, learnt and grew from things, but then she felt like, it upset me that she still felt like a victim. She was like, oh, I got insurance sorted out for my son's boyfriend and he's still looking at me like I'm a terrible person. Like, yeah, because of everything else you've done to him. Like, you did one good thing after 20 years of neglecting him. Like, he's not just going to forgive that instantly. But then, like, 10 pages later, there's a thing about, like, Noah and Jude will never forget, like, all of the terrible things that were done to them. But the one thing that they'll never tell her is that they don't blame her for it. But, like, they should. She wasn't doing the stuff. But, like, She could have stopped the stuff from happening. And okay, yeah, so you don't want to step in front of your husband who's about to beat your child, but like when you consciously make the decision to leave him, even if you feel like you're trapped in that space and you can't get out, fine. But she was in a place where she felt like she could leave, and she made the conscious decision to leave her kids behind instead of taking them out with her.
Yeah.
But then like blamed them for her coming back. If you just taken them with you, you would have been free and you would have had no reason to go back.
There was a bit where she literally said it would be so much easier if she didn't have kids because she wouldn't have to worry about taking them with her. And it's just like, then just leave. Like, I'm sorry, if your idea of being good to your children is sticking around to watch them get the shit kicked out of them, leave. Just leave. Like, because you'll be doing them a favor, because eventually they will also have the capacity to leave. Because if, like, it becomes like a catch-22 of, like, Noah sticking around because he doesn't want to see his younger kid, like his younger siblings getting beaten up. So he's then doing the same thing the mum does. You know, the youngest of all of them trying desperately to patch this family together because he's still naive enough to think that that's going to work. It's like, no, take him and run. Like, just get out. And like, it was really interesting. Yeah.
It was one of the most heartbreaking things when Noah goes missing. He doesn't go missing, he's with Rat, but Jude can't get hold of him. And like nobody cares apart from Jude, who's just like losing his shit because his brother's the only person he cares about who cares about him. And it kind of upset me seeing Noah many times being like, I'm gonna leave. He went to leave with Rat at one point and didn't even think about Jude at all.
Yeah.
That was sad.
Jude deserved better.
He did.
I mean, as I said, I found him annoying, but like I did feel for him.
That's fair. I think you can find someone annoying and still feel sorry for them.
Wouldn't want to spend time with him in real life, but like as a fictional character, shame.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to hang out with 13-year-olds either, just as a rule. They're not really my crowd. They don't understand half my jokes, so what's the point?
I think one of like Becca, you mentioned you were struggling with his age. I think I kept thinking he was a lot younger than he was. I kept thinking he was like 9 or 10, but then like he had a cell phone and was like would call Emma and she had his number saved in her phone, and like he seemed so young, but then didn't really but then was older but didn't have like any concept of sex. And yeah, I think I kept struggling every time I was reminded of his age because I thought he was so much younger than he was.
I think he is written younger than a 13-year-old is, and I always think it's really interesting when characters are given specific ages, because I think it's always better when you leave it ambiguous, because I think you can work out what age a character should be by emotional maturity if you have any kind of experience. But if you have any kind of experience and someone tells you that they're 13 but they read like a 9-year-old, that's one of two things. Either she wants to show that this family are not educated, they are not articulate, that they are not capable of looking after themselves, or she doesn't know what a 13-year-old sounds like, and you shouldn't have to like guess which one that is. And I think like I always find it like really interesting because I think you can tell like there are loads of writers where, because I'm nosy, I'll like look up what they did before they were writers, and you'll find like loads of YA and middle grade writers were teachers first, because it's like the kids, like the dynamic you get when talking to someone that age that you can pick it up. And I was talking to my brother the other day about Skullduggery, which is obviously the thing that I'm doing the read along for. And he was like, every now and then Valkyrie, who is this 14-year-old character, he's like, she sounds like a 40-year-old woman. Like, she sounds really intelligent. How does she know these things? And I'm like, but I've met 14-year-olds who, like, you ask them a question and they'll give you, like, a really smart answer. And you're just like, all right, someone knows a thing. Like, and I think that's more believable than a 13-year-old who doesn't understand what sex is. Like sex ed aside, like ignoring the education system in America being atrocious when it comes to anything kind of sex ed. At that point, you are mid-puberty, like you're having this rush of hormones, you're dealing with a lot of stuff, and you're talking to other people your age. You're all like, he's got older siblings, he will have overheard things. Like there's going to be all these different things, and it's very convenient that a 13-year-old boy doesn't understand any of that. Which is why I'm like, either just go younger, just admit that you wanted him to be younger, but then it might be that he was too young, or give me a reason why he doesn't understand those things. I don't know.
Yeah, because the only thing that I could think of is that because of how religious it is, like they won't be told anything about sex at all. But then, like you said, he has older siblings.
Yeah.
So he would have overheard things.
But
Did
also,
anyone go to school in this book?
like Emma literally talks about going to school so much. Like every chapter that had like Emma's perspective was, and once again she was not at school. Like, so they must have a school somewhere. They're just not going. But like you saying about like the churchy thing, I went to a church group as a kid, not necessarily because I was religious, but because I was friends with lots of people who were. They were the horniest bunch of teenagers I've ever met in my life, because when you're told constantly not to do a thing, hey, guess what? That's the one thing you want to do all the time. And I remember like, okay, so this is a true story. I went to a house party once with all of them. They all got shit-faced. We were having a great time. We must have been about 15, 16 years old. And I couldn't find my coat. Someone had been like, put it on, because I had like this really long pink coat. It was a really nice coat. But one of the guys had put it on and was pretending to be like a Superman. Couldn't find my coat. So I was going in every single bedroom. And I walked into one of the bedrooms, and two of my friends were like very close to just like having sex, and I just like wandered in, and being socially awkward, I just kind of like waved at them and left and was just like, oh, that's awkward. Eventually found my coat. 2 minutes later, both of them came downstairs like acting like really sheepish, and they were like, can we talk to you? And I was like, oh, please let's not talk about this. Like I don't want to like say what I saw or anything like that. And they were like, we just wanted to thank you because we weren't sure if we should have sex yet, because you know we're both Christian, and we were going to because we really wanted to, but we think you were a sign from God that we shouldn't. And I was like, no, no, I am not God trying to cock block you. I am just trying to find my coat. Like that is not what's happened here. And to this day, I genuinely think that is the funniest like reference to God I've ever been involved in. Like, I just think that's, yeah. So can't believe it. Funny though.
Yeah, it's like I'm from a large town outside of Manchester, but my mum and dad moved to a village with a tiny town next to it, and I have never seen so many teenagers on drugs as I have at like the small town next to a village, because they have nothing else to do. Whereas like I'd never encountered drugs in my large town that I lived in, with like all sorts of friends from all sorts of different places and different backgrounds and stuff. And then I went to the skate park in this small town one, and everybody was high.
Yeah, we're like that because we're right on the coast as well. So there's really not a lot to do. So we used to go down to the coastal park, and you were either drinking or doing drugs. Like that was just, that's what you did, because there was nothing else to do. And like it's really nice now because they've put loads of stuff in like in the town, so it's now really expensive around here. But there's still nothing for teenagers. And I'm like, you've got all these really nice things, which are going to be really nice spots for teenagers to get drunk and do drugs, because there's still nothing for them to like do. Like it's just standard. But yeah, so I believed that about their small town world. I absolutely believed they were all doing drugs up in the woods. That felt very authentic.
Something that I meant to say earlier but forgot about and I've just re-remembered. Although, like we were saying, the dad doing it was the super obvious thing. It was the super obvious thing. So the whole scene at the end where we find out what happened, and he like throws the gun at Hunter and is like, well, you're the only person that knows that I did it, so like if you tell anyone, like you're the only one here with a gun, people are going to think it's you. That whole thing made no sense to me, because if like the town's golden boy goes and says, yeah, that skeezy guy that no one likes, who lives in like the rundown house and clearly abuses his kids, has killed this girl, everyone would have believed him.
Yeah. Yeah,
was
I think
absolutely
there's
ridiculous and wild.
Well, actually, I forgot about that. Like, he's just looking for his wife around town, just stops by to stab Hunter and then leaves.
Yeah, just like casually. It's like, oh, I need to find my wife, pick up some groceries. Oh, I'll stab that kid on the way. Like, just like a random to-do list. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, it was one of those things where, like, I think you reach a certain point where there was only so many pages left. So this, like, it went from like having this like really insidious slow pace to just like, oh, everything's happened. Like everything's been explained. There's 3 pages left. Like, okay.
Something that I actually really didn't like about this book, just because I could see it so clearly, and as like we discussed what kind of thrillers I normally like to read, it really bothered me, is how you never actually got a reveal in this book up until the end where it replayed the entire events of the night. So it would be like, Noah walked into the bedroom and picked up an object, end of chapter. It's like, you're never going to tell me what he picks up then, and then it just kind of like drop it in like 3 chapter time, just randomly. Like 3 days ago, Noah was holding an apple, and it's like, right, so that's what that was, kind of thing. Which really bugged me because it's obviously trying to drive the intrigue, but not really giving anything away, and then very slowly, just like introducing it into the story. And it got to a point where, like, because it was done every single time, and you never really learned anything through these reveals, it was just like eye roll moments more than anything. Because I don't think, if you're not going to reveal it there's no need for it to lead up to a reveal. You can just drop the crumbs throughout the story without it being like, Dolly took the pages out of the wall and read them. And like, if you're not going to say what the pages are, then just don't introduce it like that, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's one question on Anna Bailey's Goodreads things, you know, where you can like ask the author things at the bottom, and it is exclusively things like, are you going to explain these things that happened? Like, who was the phone call? Like, what was the object? Where were they going? What is this for? One thing that, like, I was talking to Ali about this book, because Ali finished it before I did, and she was like, what is the tall bones? What is that? What, as a thing, what is that? Like, what is the relevance of it? Because obviously in America, the name of this book is something like Where the Truth Lies, which I think is a awful title, but I wanted more of the tall bones. I wanted the tall bones to be creepier. I wanted to know like what kind of shapes they were, like why people were drawn to that area, other than just because it's in the middle of the woods and a great place to get drunk. Like, you know, I wanted something a bit more tangible about them. And considering it's literally the title of the book, we got nothing about what they are, what the purpose of, like, why should I care about these random lumps of rock?
And it's not like in other books, I can't think of an example of one right now, but in other books that have a title like this, it keeps bringing it back to the title. So like, I expected this to keep being like significant things happened at the Tall Bones and everything that happened surrounds the Tall Bones. But that wasn't the case.
No.
I mean, as you know, I sometimes miss very obvious things unless they're explained to me in great detail. So for the first like 5 chapters, by which point we've seen like an entire scene that takes place at the Tall Bones, I still thought that the Tall Bones was referencing the church, because just from the get-go I assumed, because of the title on the cover, that the Tall Bones were the church and it was supposed to be like spires or whatever. And I just thought that these kids were like hanging out and getting drunk just in front of the church.
At the church.
And it took me more of the book than I would like to admit to realize that they were just like these random rocks.
That's fair. I think that's fair, because like, if it's not clear either in the synopsis or like in the actual book, like, give us a head start. I think the problem is like, as a writer, you know, or even as a reader, you know that you can never go into a book completely blind. That is physically impossible unless you open it as a Word document on your phone and you don't have the like front cover or the synopsis or anything like that, or you've never spoken to someone else about it and you've just randomly stumbled. You're already going to have some suspicions about what you're going into from the front cover and from those like opening pages. And I think having the church upside down on the front implied that it was going to be something, if not supernatural, but certainly related to the church in that creepy way. Like, if the church had been called Tallbones, which is nothing religious whatsoever, that would have been really interesting, because it would have lent into the culty vibes. It would have lent into the fact that this church is just an excuse to do awful things, as opposed to an institution that is there to like give you a moral compass kind of thing. And I just think, yeah, it was just another kind of wasted opportunity, really. And I think part of the list of things that I didn't like are the things I didn't like because I had expectations about what I expected this like narrative to be about, and then it wasn't, and that made me sad.
Malene says, interesting talk about focus on scenes, character fails, points of view, and details that don't work, which, thank you, but also sounds like a book that's not worth reading.
I saw that. I was really funny because you guys rated it highly.
Well, this is the thing, is like I started at like a 4. I don't know if I'd recommend it though, because like obviously with Waypoint, that's literally how I pay my bills, is I recommend books to people. I don't know if this is something where, unless I know you're a Gothic nerd who's read everything, even remotely modern Gothic, I don't know if this is a book that I would recommend, because the things that I didn't like about it don't outweigh the things I did. Like, I like it from a critical point of view, as a way of like, as a character study or a study in Gothic writing, as opposed to because I enjoyed the book. Because I think with me, 3 to 4 stars can be, this isn't a book that I would read normally, but it's written really well, or it's a genre that I really enjoy that could have been written better. So it's always in that kind of like cusp of it. So, and to be honest, I think I'm going to drop it to 3 stars anyway, because the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, I don't know how I justified that 4 stars. I think I just went on, like, that was nice. Like, I enjoyed that. And I'm like, no, I didn't. I just got excited.
I think this is the thing with me with thrillers and romance. Like, I can say that I enjoyed them, but if I have to discuss them critically, it all kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
Like, so.
I feel like these lives have just been like, as Hannah and I talk about the books, us just disliking it more and more. And it's made me realize that my initial rating instinct, which I know that I rate books very instinctively, like I tried using Corpile, it lasted 1 book, and I was like, no, but this rating that I've come to very systematically is not the rating that I want to give this book. So no. So like, I know that I don't rate books in like a logical, analytical way, but I think more than anything, this book club has made me realize that like I need to put in a little bit more reflection before I attach a number to things.
Yeah, I might leave it. I might leave my rating until after the lives moving forward, because it always changes. And I think the other thing is I've learned there's no way we can pick any of our favorites for this, because one of us will hate it and it'll get really it'll get very tense.
Also, so Claudia is one of my like IRL friends, and literally I feel like for context, you guys need to know, pretty much any book that I recommend to her, she's like, yes, sounds amazing, 10 out of 10, I'm obsessed, I'm gonna love this. So the fact that us talking about this has made her not want to read it.
Yeah. Well, the other reason I think I need to drop it to 3 is because where I'm hoping to move in the next year, I'm only keeping hold of books that I rate 4 or 5 stars. Anything lower than that, I'm just unhauling, because I don't want to be boxing books that I don't care about that much. And I think I don't care about packing this, so I'm just going to get rid of it. So
I've actually just, I needed to make some space. I put up a shelf. And I've been moving all of my books around, trying to make some more space. And I've just like, like sometimes you just need a bit of space from a book. So, like 6 months after when you've read it, you're like, oh, I'll keep it for a bit. And 6 months after, you literally don't care about it. So I have a stack of books like that I'm just not, like, the attachment is worn off. Just stick them in a corner. You'll find 6 months, and then it'll be easy to unhaul them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, I can be quite cutthroat, because the thing is, I unhaul my books to a local school if it's YA or middle grade, or to a traveling library if it's adult, because they basically take on any books that I don't want. And a lot of the books I'll get in for Waypoint, I want to make sure that I'm actually recommending like a decent book. So every now and then, like I'll get one in to try for Waypoint, and then I'll be like, oh, that was really boring. So I'll just like unhaul it to them. They know they're getting books that I didn't like, but like it does make it a lot easier because I'm like, I know that someone's going to read this and they're not going to care about the things that I care about. They're not going to be like, oh, well, the pacing of that was like a little bit off, or that character didn't have a full arc, or whatever. They'd be like, that was fun. I enjoyed that. What else have you got? And I just, so it makes it a lot easier. But I read about 150 books last year. I kept 20 of them, and I just unhauled the rest because I was like, I liked those, just not enough.
Wow.
Yeah, brutal. So. But this is all I've got shelving wise for the books that I want to keep at the moment. So if it doesn't fit on that, I've got to find space for it somewhere else, and it just doesn't exist.
Have you found?
Yep.
Go on.
I just got rid of a bookcase because we don't have space for it, but I just double stacked my other bookcase.
This is double stacked. So where this is like, so you can see where the wall obviously goes back in. That goes right flush against the wall. So I've taken all my DVDs out of their like DVD cases and put them in like this little storage box. So it's got like 150 DVDs, but it's this big. So I've used these underneath it so that I can stack my books up and I can actually see the titles behind it. So these are all double stacked. And then the ones at the bottom that you can't see are just like piled and squished in because I'm like, I don't need to look at those. I know that I have them and they're not going anywhere. It's a mess.
If you include my TBR carts, then the shelf that I just put up on the wall is my 7th bookshelf. I've still got stacks of books on the floor.
Yeah, it will stop when I've got my own place. It will absolutely change because I'll be like, oh, I don't need insulation. I've got books. That's fine. We'll take out this wall because I want more books. Yeah.
That's a good idea. I've never thought of taking out walls and replacing them with bookshelves. I feel like that's good.
I think as long as you've got the supporting beam, but then you use that supporting beam to put the shelves between.
Yeah.
Job done. Just get it renovating.
It also offers an opportunity for like secret door where you can pull out a book and
Agreed. I was talking to a carpenter friend of mine who made a portrait door. So basically it is like a functioning door. It just opens to the office. But the idea is that you can put like a print on the door. So it looks like it's just a painting hanging on the wall. And then you open it up and it's actually like the office behind. And I was like, have you ever done any like other secret entrances? And he was like, no, this is my one and only. The only other thing he's ever made is a little doggy door that goes under the stairs, and it's like this big for this like tiny little Jack Russell to like go in and out. And I'm like, that's cute. I like that. But more people should have secret passageways and hidden doors, I think. Make life a bit more interesting, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just in the process of dropping my rating down. Yeah.
I wish we had IKEA. I feel like IKEA would be very dangerous for me, but it would be wonderful.
See, I'm really indecisive, so I can't, IKEA's kind of just like a go in, you grab everything kind of place. I can't do that. I need to go to IKEA, find one thing that I might want, come home and measure, think about it, and then go back to IKEA just to get that one thing, and then maybe see something else and then repeat the process. I can't just do like whole grab furniture and come home kind of thing.
Yeah, and the problem with that is there's only one way in, and it's like I made the mistake. I went exclusively, and I've got one down. I went exclusively to pick up one of these because I had one, so my computer's on one, and my brother decided he wanted one. And I walked all the way around, was like looking at all the things, put loads of things in my trolley, got loads of stuff, got to the checkout bit and was like, well, where's the office stuff? I had somehow managed to go through one of like the little side channels from like kitchen to bedroom, had completely missed the office bit, and there was no way of me going all the way back to the office bit because the escalators only went one way. So I had to pay for everything, go out and then go back exclusively for the office stuff and then come back round because they were understaffed. So they couldn't even send someone upstairs to grab that one item for me, which I've got 2 degrees, but I am so fucking stupid. Like, I don't know how I do it like that.
How is this a real place?
I know.
It's like a maze. It's like psychologically laid out to make you buy things.
Yeah, it's very clever. It's very clever, and I do like a lot of the IKEA stuff because I think it's just really straightforward. And for someone like me who really prides herself on being as independent as possible, she says, being handed a cup of tea, thank you very much. I like it because I can put the furniture together quite simply, and it just makes me feel really powerful. Literally, that tea came out of nowhere. That really like because I've got my ring light there, and the tea just kind of like came through from behind the door. That was really creepy, but I enjoyed it.
I feel like we have digressed a lot, which I don't have a problem with.
Standard.
Any excuse to not do the thing I'm supposed to be doing, I'm totally fine with. But yeah. Do you guys have anything else like book-wise that you feel you need to get off your chest?
I don't think so. I think I've covered all the stuff that I mean, like it'd be interesting to. We haven't actually talked about Abigail as the victim or as a character at all.
Oh yeah, because it had the it ends ambiguously.
Yeah. So, do you think she made it?
I do, and I think that she made it solely because there was a scene where she patches her own injury.
Mm.
And earlier in the book, the detective was like, oh, well, she might have survived, but what are the chances of a 17-year-old girl being able to apply pressure to a gunshot wound? Like, she's not going to be able to do it. And then we cut to a scene where she injured herself and her dad taught her how to do it.
Mm. And how to hold her breath.
Yeah.
So, like, even if he'd, like, looked over and, like, looked into the water and not seen her, chances are she was able to get away. And I quite liked that, although it's ambiguous in, like, a positive way, that out of all of them, she was able to escape. But that, I don't know, there was a lot about her character that made sense that she was going to escape. So I did like that. I liked the fact that it wasn't a true tragedy, because like they found her cardigan covered in blood, but they never found the body. They never found anything more than that. I did quite like that. And I like that she wasn't perfect. There was nothing about her that was necessarily a good person. But she stuck up for her friends and she supported like her younger brother. Out of all of them, she was one of the nicest. So it was nice that at the end I was like, cool. But it's not like hard and fast. Yes, she definitely got away. Because one of the things we really hated about Girl in the Walls last time, Becca, was that there's this girl that lives in the walls, and then at the end she's educated and she's got all these things, and it like the last chapter is her life 15 years after all this has happened to her. And she's just like a normal human. And we're like, where? Why? Like, how did that happen? I've got more questions now than if you just ended it with her walking away. So I quite like the fact that it was ambiguous because, like, the questions are sensible. Yeah, you're going to have, rather than being like, I've tried to write in this really neat ending where she finally returns to Tallbones. Like, yeah, I'd have hated that.
I will say, though, it was interesting how at the end Rat thinks that he saw her, but he's not sure that it's her. So I would have liked to know exactly, because everything to like with the end was really ambiguous about how far from the end of the story it was. So I would have liked to know how long it was since the end of the story for Rat not to be able to recognize her. Because it had to be more than a couple of years, because it's not like, yes, he didn't know her very much, but there was the whole thing with the fact that she went missing and that she was shot, and that was a big deal. So like everybody would have been familiar with what she looked like. And would remember it specifically because of this long period. Like somebody set fire to him because of her. Like he would remember what he looks like.
Yeah. Well, he's confronted with a photo of her. Like it's literally like Noah. The reason they have their massive row is because Noah suddenly suspects he might be involved somehow, and that's the thing that breaks them. It's not the fact that he's dealing with all this other internalized homophobia. The thing that cuts them apart is that Rat is like betrayed by Noah because he suddenly thinks it's possible for him to murder someone. And the confrontation with the photo, you would remember that. That is something that, like, even if it's just like a hazy memory of it, like I feel like, yeah, that's a face you would remember for those reasons, because it's tied to a trauma. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but like my dad went to like a business training conference, And they called someone up to the stage and they were like, right, we're going to explain to you what happens between like positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, and how negative reinforcement stays in your brain longer than positive. And basically they had this like long list of things. They were like, we've got your CV here. We can tell you all the amazing things that you've done. We would happily give you these awards. You'd be nominated for this. You can do this really well, this really well, this really well. And then he slapped him across the face. And he was like, give me 3 of the things I just told you that are good about you. And he couldn't remember any of them because your brain physically cannot get past that negative rush. Now all he sees is the slap across the face, even though he's just been given this long list. So from a psychological point of view, if you have all that trauma, that is the face you will remember till the day you die. Like, it's not going to be a case of like, oh, did I see her? You either did or didn't. And I did kind of like the idea that maybe he's not 100% sure, so that's not why he doesn't tell Noah, but also because it's none of his business to tell Noah. I felt like that would have been like a characteristic of him, is that it's a case of, well, no, she got out, so let's like leave her alone kind of thing.
I would have I feel kind of shitty about the fact that she didn't want to reconnect with her brothers, because once again, Jude, like, fair enough, Noah, she had beef with him, he had beef with her. And he's older than her, but she, like everybody else, left a little brother there.
Yeah.
Which, especially because if she was the girl that Rat saw, then she's like happy with a family of her own. It's like, well, if many years have passed and you're in a place where like she has, if we're going to be sexist about it, she has a husband to protect her from her father, she can at least try and reach out to her brothers.
Yeah.
Who were in a shitty situation with her, and now that she's got the distance from it, she can see and try and reach out to Noah and be like, look, I know that I kind of caused this thing to happen, but it wasn't my fault. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't Jude's fault. It was the fact that we lived in an abusive household kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think also the fact that, okay, like, ultimately she was the one that got assaulted. So, like, at that point, she was the one that was treated the worst. But up until that point, like, her life out of the 3 of theirs was the best. Like, both of her parents, I mean, didn't treat her well because it was still an abusive situation, but like, of the 3 kids, she was treated the best by both of them.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a bit where, from Jude's perspective, you see the very first time Abigail was ever hit by either of her parents is the night after she's been assaulted by the guy in the car. Her mom slaps her across the face because she wants to go to the clinic. And to me, that's quite, like, it was interesting in that Jude makes a comment that this is the first time that she's ever been beaten, that it's always him and Noah that get the brunt of it. It's never her. And I just think, from an empathy point of view, how far do I believe that an older sister would do nothing to protect her younger siblings, especially if she knows she's not going to be hurt? Or is she actually twice as awful because the reason she never got hurt is because she never intervened? I just know that as a... No, sorry, what were you saying?
She also doesn't have a great role model in terms of her mother never intervened.
Yeah. Yeah. But she does intervene for Emma. She stands up for Emma. So she has the capacity for it. And that's the thing that, when I say about inconsistencies, that's the thing I don't believe. Like, I am very defensive of my friends. I'm also very defensive of my brothers because I'm the oldest of 3. So, like, I remember at school, one of my younger brothers got in a fight and I was ready to, like, this kid was like 4 years younger than me and I was fully ready to, like, put him back in his place. And, like, so for me, as an older sister, if I'm trying to bridge that gap of, as a reader, what would I do? And how can I empathize with this character who is doing something different from me? I need to have a reason to do that. And I think when there's the inconsistency of, yeah, she'll stand up for Emma, but she won't stand up for Jude. It just doesn't make any sense for me, especially when what Emma's dealing with is bullying, whereas what her younger brother is dealing with is being a cripple for the rest of his life because his dad is physically abusive. Like, they're not on the same, they're not even on the same league.
The audacity of the dad as well, when he complained that he had a cripple for a son. It's like, dude, you're the one that threw him down the stairs. He was fine before that.
Yeah. Literally nothing wrong with him. You did that. Yeah.
Another thing that kind of, again, was just could have been so good, but more, was the Emma's dad plotline. It felt like it was building to something so big, and then it was like, I guess what happened was a big deal, but it was also just glossed over so quickly.
Yeah.
Like, they kept referencing it. I was expecting it to be a really big deal, and then it was just like, oh well, he got beat up and then he ran away.
Well, the thing is, for me, that is a big deal. What makes it feel like it's been downplayed is purely because it's from the perspective of the mother who chose to stay. Imagine you are in a relationship with someone, you are married to someone, you have their child, something traumatic happens to them, and they say, right, I need to go home. I need to know that I'm safe, that this isn't going to happen to me again. And you go, but my job's really important. Like, I just can't, like, as someone who spends a lot of time working and very little time socializing in comparison, I still think that that is a hard bridge for me to make. Like, the idea of, like, you've married this person, you've said your vows, you've got your kids, but you won't go with them when you've seen that they've literally had the shit kicked out of them.
She's also, I'm not sure, like, she's some sort of medical professional. I don't know if she is like a doctor, but she still has the qualifications. She can go be a doctor somewhere else or whatever it is.
Yeah.
She does.
It's not going to be hard to find a job.
No, like, it really isn't. Oh, you know what I've heard? I've heard that there are too many doctors and that we just don't know where to put them. Too many doctors. No one's ever said that.
And, like, he comes from Albuquerque, which is a pretty big city, and she's like, no, I'm going to stay at my, like, little rural town clinic when we could move, like, back to it, because my career's really taking off here, and not, like, moved. I want to say isn't it like the capital city of New Mexico or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and not moved to this major city.
Yeah.
I do think there was a lot of reluctance from all of the characters to leave, and I'm like, what is it about this shithole that makes you want to stay? Like, there's literally nothing here apart from the people around you, and each character has a handful of people that they actually care about, so just take them with you.
Yeah.
Like, the main character's mum just had her daughter and her husband left, so she just had a kid. Dolly only had one child at the time that she tried to leave and ended up coming back. Rat keeps getting told, you need to leave or else you're going to die, and he's like, I'm just gonna stay here. Like, people are consistently racist and homophobic, but I'm just gonna
I'll just deal with it. It's fine. Like, what? I think I always find that really interesting because I think it's when it's systematic. Like, I think I would have found that more believable if it was somewhere, like, say for example, it was set in like a London borough and all this is happening on an estate that is council funded. So you're earning a certain wage, but also the rest of it is made up in benefits. You can only move to other places that are funded by that council. That would have made more sense because you can only move into another sphere, which is basically the same thing. So you're not actually going anywhere. But fundamentally, these people, there's no one there that doesn't own the property that they're like living in or can take with them. Like, Rat's caravan is the only one that can move. Move then. Like, that's the whole point.
He doesn't have a job or anything. We still don't know exactly how he makes his money, but he's got a tin full of money. So it's not like he doesn't have the means to move because all he's going to do is park his caravan somewhere else and he'll still have his tin of money.
Yeah. Also, how does one get a caravan and a motorbike to the same place? That's my question.
Put the motorbike in the caravan and drive it away.
Okay. I just imagined his caravan would be smaller than that, but I suppose that's one way of doing it. I was just like...
Up until you asked that, I was just like, he's there. He has an RV and he has a bike. And this is fine.
I was like, you can only drive one at a time.
You might have a roof rack. I don't know if you can put a bicycle on a roof rack. Maybe.
I mean, you could probably get a trailer, depending on how heavy the bike is. You could probably get a trailer. But I just imagined it as not a particularly big RV because it's just him. And the fact that, like, when him and Noah are stood in it, it feels very close. And Emma talks about, like, when he's literally like leaning against like the top of it. I imagine it's quite. I've just been in very small caravans, obviously, so I was just like, I just assumed it was this tiny little caravan. It's not like a static home kind of caravan. So how's he getting? I don't know. It wasn't something I even thought about reading. It was literally as we were talking about it right now. I was like, how?
The other thing about like no one wanting to leave, the only people that reference leaving are like the jocks, who are the people that, to me, conceivably would want to stay. Like, you've grown up in this small town that you're like the kings of.
Yeah.
Okay, it makes sense to me if you're going to get stuck there, but like everyone else that has the shitty life is content. But the only people that have good lives are the ones that want to get out.
Yeah. If you're a big fish in a little pond, that's a powerful place. But like, if you're a little fish in a pond, it doesn't matter what size the pond is because you're a little fish. Like, you're going to have to do what you can to survive. So I completely agree. Like, it would have made way more sense that they were sticking around. It was really interesting, the scene when Noah has to serve his classmates. So not the ones that are coming up and looking to graduate, but the ones that are like, oh, I've come back for this reason and will probably never come back again. Like, I've got nothing. Because he's got this window into what he could have. And it's like, well, then other people must want to leave. What is it about this group of 6 they just can't let go? I don't know. It was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like anything else I have to say is just kind of rehashing. I don't understand why these sad people with their sad lives don't want to make their lives better.
Yeah. I think that's a vibe for all the thrillers that I read, though. It's like, you could have it so much nicer than this. Why are you doing this to yourself? Yeah. Okay, big question though, Kelly. Did you prefer it to The Maidens? That was the best face.
I don't think that there is anything that I will ever hate more than The Maidens.
We should have picked that one for this month. But...
Oh, but then you would have had to read it,
oh,
and
yeah,
I wouldn't have done that to you.
I have got it. I need to. It's in the unhaul box. I just haven't got rid of it yet. I'm annoyed because I used some gift vouchers that I was given for my birthday to get it as a pre-order. So,
you know,
feels like
something like saying about having had no interest in The Maidens and watched everybody hate it. Like, I've really enjoyed myself because I keep watching TBRs where everyone's like, "I'm so excited," and then a Rappaport vlog where they're like, "This was not good."
So Audible were doing like buy one get one free on audiobooks, and The Silent Patient, which is the first book, was, I was like, well, I might as well try it because it's that author, and I hated it, and there were so many things about it that I was like, it's not just problematic, it's badly written, and it's, as someone who is, go on,
sexist.
Yeah, massively. Yeah.
I knew there was a problem with it, but I couldn't remember what the problem was.
So a lot of it's a male perspective the entire way through. The only female perspective you have is through this diary entry. And because of that, it's a very skewed perspective, which is fine in a thriller, because I think the whole point is if you've got an unreliable narrator, that can be quite interesting. But the problem is this guy thinks or pretends the whole way through that he's the hero, and he isn't. And it's really, really obvious that he's trying too hard. And then there's like all this other stuff where this author obviously thinks they're really clever because they've made all these like Greek literature references, but they fundamentally misunderstood the play. So like, you've done this thing and it doesn't make any sense. And then the thing that kills me with The Maidens is the whole way through The Silent Patient, and I hope you don't mind me spoiling The Silent Patient for you, but essentially the psychiatrist that is helping her is the one that caused her to kill her husband in the first place. In The Maidens, there's a reference to him, and he has gone to this hospital to help her because he thinks he can. He thinks he's the only person who can. But in The Maidens, which is like, as a psychological thing, is interesting. In The Maidens, it completely retcons it because he's told by someone else that she's there, and this person basically says, I think you could help her. And it's all of his like reason for going is just completely rewritten in this other book, and it's just like, why? That was the one interesting thing of this entire 300-page disaster. Like, what? It was really bad. It was really bad. And I just remember, like, because I had it as an audiobook, I was like, I'm just gonna get to the end so I can just tick off another book, but I hate this. Oh, no.
So I got like 50 pages into the Maidens, and then I knew Hannah just read The Silent Patient, and I was like, is it bad because I'm slumping, or is it just bad?
It's just bad. It's just bad. And because it's really interesting because like I watch a lot of TBR videos, and every time it pops up I'm just like, I hope you like it more than I did.
So Molly on her Instagram story today posted that she'd bought Tall Bones, and instantly I was like, oh, like I'm so happy because I really enjoyed it, you know, before we started pulling it apart. And then immediately afterwards I was like, but she really liked the Maidens and I hated it. So what are the chances we're going to have the same opinion on this book?
Well, this is the thing, is like what I've found, like, because I've done 2 live streams with Molly now, and I have rated both books either 3 or 2 stars, and Molly has given both of them 5 stars. And Molly, it's pure instinct. Either she likes it or she doesn't. So her reviews are always at like either end of those spectrums. So I'm like, I've got no worries. She'll probably really like it. It's fine. But yeah. Do you want to talk about next month's book then?
Yeah. So next month we're reading The Girl on the Walls, which I haven't started reading yet. So
We're reading The Girl on the
no,
Walls?
we're not reading The Girl on the Walls.
I'm never reading that again.
I've still got both copies of it, and every time I see it, I'm just like, why?
Oh, Becca, we were so disappointed. I even got a signed copy in so that we could do it as a giveaway, and then I was like, I can't make people earn this. Like, I'm just gonna unhaul it.
Both of us owned 2 copies of it and just hated it.
Hated it.
Next month we're reading The Woman in Black. This month we're reading The Woman in Black, which I haven't started yet. So Hannah is probably more qualified to talk about.
Only because I've read it before, but what I like about it is that it's 138 pages, and in a month where
Daniel Radcliffe one.
No, it's Susan Hill.
No, the movie, The Woman in Black.
Oh, yeah, Daniel Radcliffe. So I thought you said Anne Radcliffe. I was like, no. Yes, that one. Because we did it as a play at school, and then I read it again at uni. So this will be my 3rd time reading it. But yeah, I just like the fact that the Times have called her the queen of traditional ghost story. So it will be the most, because what I liked about this one is this is the most Gothic we've read so far, because the other picks that we've had have just not been really Gothic at all. Like, they seem like in their descriptions, they seem like they're going to be, and then they weren't, whereas this kind of was. This is actually Gothic. Like, everyone knows it, so it should be quite cool.
So if you want to join us, all of the Lamentable Library information is in the description. The link for the Discord, the link for the Twitter. Hannah's channel's in the description. Becca's channel's in the description. So go check them out because they're great. And thank you for watching. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will, well, Hannah and I will see you next month. Bye.